Have you spent many years working to improve yourself, challenging yourself to push through your fears and your perceived limitations? Maybe you've tried to become more patient, more loving, more spiritual, more evolved, and managing your emotions better. Perhaps you've been working on changing your limiting beliefs. Many women become incredibly accomplished at doing and achieving many things. We become really good at problem solving, good at striving and understanding, achieving, taking care of everyone. We've become really good at working to improve ourselves too, right? And yet for many, they find themselves just utterly exhausted from pushing to get things done. And after a while, that great to-do list has grown into epic proportions. And so while self-improvement has tremendous value, in fact, it really is a part of a much bigger journey, and more so than we first realize, I think, because there comes a season in our life when we're invited into something deeper. It's just totally natural to our growth. We're invited into that sacred art of becoming. And perhaps that's why so many intelligent, caring, successful women find themselves just exhausted. Improving burns out. Not because self-improvement is wrong, it contributes to the natural stages of growth. But beneath the surface, there's some very faithful, limited root beliefs that have been carrying far more than they were ever able to carry. And perhaps you're quietly saying to yourself, what I once said in utter exhaustion, there's got to be a better way. And my heart wants to tell you, there most certainly is. Hi, I'm Judy K. Katz, and I'm a transformational coach and a spiritual mentor. And I'm the creator of the Deep Journey Transformational Experience. I want to welcome you if this is your first time with me, and I want to welcome you back if you're returning. And what I'm about to do is to tell you a short story about the pathway of transformation that I believe is going to speak to your soul. So please stay with me. This isn't going to be your typical experience of getting straightforward answers to big problems. It's really bigger than that. It's the opening to a better way. So let me ask you, do you love trees? I love trees. I love gardening. In fact, tending to flowers and trees has always been a sanctuary for me. And over time, I began to realize something. Nature is probably one of our greatest teachers. Trees don't wake up in the morning, for example, wondering, gee, how am I going to improve myself? And they don't ask how to become better trees. They just simply grow. They grow out of the seed that was purposefully planted, right? And then one day, while I was reflecting on my own journey of transformation, I imagined a tree whose roots had worked very hard for a very long time. They were faithful roots, protective roots, they were shallow roots. They were roots that believed that the entire life of the tree depended upon them. And because they loved the tree, they worked tirelessly. They were stretching, striving, competing for water. They were trying to produce better fruit, trying to keep the tree alive, trying to become enough, and trying to just finally get it right. And then one day, there was a gardener that noticed her tree was struggling. The fruit had become bitter. Some of the branches were bent and they were dying. Some leaves were beginning to fall. And you know what the gardener didn't realize at first? Was that beneath the surface, the little roots were carrying far more than they were ever designed to carry. So at first the gardener thought, I must prune harder. I need to take more action. I must produce better fruit. I must fix the branches. I must try another technique. I need to think more positively and stop feeling stressed. I really have to finally get this right. And because the gardener believed that if the branches of action were strong and healthy enough, if the fruit looked beautiful enough, then everything would finally be well. However, over time, the harder the gardener worked on the branches, the more exhausted the tree became. And the little roots worked even harder, trying to save the tree, trying to become enough, trying to keep everything alive. And the gardener wasn't wrong. She cared deeply. She loved the tree. She simply didn't yet know that there was a deeper taproot that had the capacity to feed the entire tree. And consequently, it wasn't getting enough water. And then one day, the gardener knelt beside the tree. And instead of criticizing the little roots, she wept. And then she whispered, "Oh, you little roots, you've worked so hard. Thank you. No wonder you're tired. You've been carrying responsibilities that you were never designed to carry." And then the gardener realized something that changed everything. There was a taproot deeper beneath all of the shallow roots, a root that had been forgotten. It wasn't created, it wasn't a belief, a root that didn't need any protecting, this root that had always been there. It just needed water. And the water was the gardener's attention to it. And then what happened? Well, the deeper root, it whispered to those shallow little roots. And it said, "You don't have to carry the whole tree anymore. I've always been here. I've always been connected to life. I am love, and love is the real power. So you can just relax now, and I am the better way." And those little roots just wept because no one had ever thanked them before. No one had ever understood how hard they had worked. So perhaps you recognize yourself in this story, perhaps not. You can see it still moves me just to speak it out loud. Maybe you, like me, you spent years where you were reading books and buying courses and working on yourself, trying to think more positively, and trying to finally get your life together, trying to become the best version of yourself. And maybe you've noticed something, or you're finally admitting you're exhausted. Not because you've done anything wrong, but because some very faithful parts of you have been carrying responsibilities that they just were never designed to carry. Parts that learned, I have to prove myself. I have to get this right. I have to make everyone happy. I have to stay in control. I have to earn love. Well, those are all your little roots, your learned conditioned beliefs. And they've worked so hard to keep you alive. And now here's the hidden part. This is really important. Those little roots have been denying themselves permission to have what they most need. And they don't even realize it. They didn't choose to deny what they needed. It's just that what they believe makes permission impossible. So think about this. If I believe I'm not worthy, then how can I permit myself to rest? If I believe I don't matter, then how can I permit myself to receive? If I believe I have to earn love, how could I ever possibly permit myself to just simply be? You see, the little roots aren't withholding permission. The beliefs themselves are preventing permission. And so they continue striving because they love the tree. They're not bad, they're just afraid. And so again, back to the gardener with tears in her eyes, she whispered, "Oh, little roots, you have my permission. You have my permission to rest, to receive, to trust, to matter. You have my permission to flourish because love is the real power. And I choose that now." And for the first time, those little roots believed her because they could feel that something had changed. You see, the deeper taproot was finally being watered, and little by little, they began to trust and loosen their grip because the loving gardener had made a choice, a sacred choice, to align and identify with her true nature. Her true nature of unconditional love, that innate creative power of life itself. And for the first time, the little roots no longer had to carry the whole tree alone. And then something beautiful began to happen. The little roots didn't disappear. They relaxed and they transformed. And because the deeper taproot was now feeding the whole tree, the little roots no longer had to struggle. They didn't have to struggle to keep the tree alive. Instead, they began doing what they were always meant to do. They became strong, supporting roots. And even more beautiful, the qualities that were hidden beneath their fears, they began to emerge. So people-pleasing no longer had to prove worthiness, and it became compassion, sensitivity, kindness, connection. Perfectionism no longer had to earn love, and it became excellence and creativity, contribution. And control no longer had to keep everything safe and all together. And then it became discernment, wisdom, personal responsibility. Overgiving became generosity. Being right became integrity and truth. And staying hurt became vulnerability and empathy. And fear became discernment. And the little roots felt something astonishing. Nothing in them needed to be rejected, only restored back into love. For love is all there is. And perhaps transformation isn't about trying harder, as my story is suggesting. Transformation begins when we stop asking our little roots to carry the whole tree. And instead, we remember there is a deeper innate taproot, a deeper source, a deeper power. And a love is the real power. It's the dynamic, creative power of all there is. And something else is really important to remember. The deeper root isn't a belief. Beliefs live in the root system. Beliefs are learned and then they're reinforced by their fruit. But the taproot, the deepest root, is not a belief. It's innate in us. It's being, it's God expression, if you will. It's love. It's the ultimate power that just is. It always has been, it always will be, and perhaps identity transformation isn't changing who we are at all. It's remembering. It's choosing to identify with what's always been true. Not the little roots, not the branches, not the fruit, but the deeper taproot itself. So you've probably been incredibly accomplished at doing, and yet you're exhausted. You're not living the life your sensing is calling you. It's inviting you into something deeper, into that sacred art of becoming. And to remember that there is a deeper taproot that is your real power. It's innate within you. It's what gives life to the authentic you. It was that seed that was planted from your very beginning. And all it needs is your willing attention. So it's time, because where self-improvement ends, transformation begins. And maybe everything else is simply learning to come home. And if no one has told your little roots lately, let me tell them something now. Little roots, you've worked so hard. Thank you. There is a better way. Love is the real power, and you don't have to carry that whole tree anymore. So if you'd like more information on how to enter this pathway of transformation that I've actually taken you through in my story, well then please watch my previous video, The Missing Link to Personal Transformation. I've actually placed it here at the end and also in the title description below. And I truly want to thank you for being here. I trust that you heard exactly what you needed, and I truly celebrate your becoming and your willingness to listen. So until next time, bye for now.